5 years before BP caused a worse oil spill in history with the Deepwater Horizon, they caused one of the worst refinery explosions in U.S. history. Imagine the scene. March 23rd, 2005, at the BP Texas City Refinery. You've got a crew of absolutely exhausted workers trying to restart a massive processing unit. But the gauges they desperately need to see what's going on, they're broken. The alarms that should be screaming a warning, they're dead silent. A whole series of ignored warnings, deferred maintenance, and just plain deadly decisions was about to collide in one single catastrophic moment. And when the dust settled, 15 people were dead. And it didn't stop there. Another 180 people were injured, many of them with wounds that would change their lives forever. Now, you have to understand, this was no freak accident, not even close. This was the totally predictable end to a completely broken system. So in this explainer, we're going to break down all of those cascading failures, the technical, the human, and the cultural, to really get to the bottom of not just what happened, but why it was ever allowed to happen in the first place. All right, let's get right into it. First up, the mechanics of the disaster itself. How in the world does a routine, everyday startup literally explode? Well, this whole terrible day started long before the blast, way back at 2 in the morning. That's when operators started filling this huge piece of equipment called a raffinate splitter tower. But here's problem number one. The main level gauge they were relying on was just wrong. By midday, high-level alarms started screaming, but they went off so often they were basically just background noise. They were ignored. And then, just after 1 p.m., it happens. The tower overfills catastrophically, sending a geyser of super flammable liquid into the air. 5 minutes later, it found a spark. I mean, just try to wrap your head around the scale of this error. The liquid level was supposed to be sitting at about 10 feet. Instead, it shot all the way up to an estimated 138 feet. The pressure was just unbelievable. It blew right past the safety valves, shooting this volatile liquid out of an old, obsolete vent stack. A stack, by the way, that was supposed to have been upgraded years ago, but that project kept getting deferred to cut costs. And the result of that? It was as predictable as it was devastating. The liquid instantly flashed into a massive, invisible cloud of gas that was heavier than air, so it just hugged the ground, spreading out, looking for one thing: a spark. It found one in an idling diesel pickup truck, and the result is what's called a vapor cloud explosion, or a VCE. This isn't just a fire, it's a massive shockwave that just tears everything in its path apart. So, you've got to be asking, how could the operators make such a basic, fundamental error? Well, the first clue, and it's a huge one, is just how unbelievably exhausted the entire crew was. Get this. Investigators found that the operators on that unit had been working 12-hour shifts for over 29 consecutive days. Just let that sink in for a second. An entire month without a single day off, working in one of the most high-hazard environments imaginable. Look, under OSHA's process safety management standard, human factors are a critical risk, and this is exactly why. When you're that fatigued, your judgment is shot. Your reaction time slows to a crawl. You misread gauges. You get what's called fixation, where you focus on one wrong detail and completely miss the bigger picture. The operators weren't being negligent. They were set up to fail by a system that completely ignored the very real limits of human performance. Okay, so you've got exhausted workers. What could possibly make that situation worse? How about forcing them to do their jobs completely blind? Because that's essentially what was happening here. The critical safety instruments they needed were broken. Just look at this table. It's a total breakdown of safeguards. The main level transmitter wasn't just off, it was showing them the exact opposite of reality. It said the level was falling when it was rapidly rising. The backup alarm? Broken. The simple sight glass for a quick visual check? So dirty it was useless. And when the liquid finally overflowed into the safety drum, its high-level alarm failed too. Every single layer of protection was gone. This is a textbook, absolute failure of mechanical integrity, which is a core pillar of OSHA's PSM standard. You are legally required to make sure safety-critical equipment is functional. But here, these were known problems that were just ignored, turning essential safeguards into nothing more than useless decorations. But all the technical failures in the world don't really explain why so many people died. For that, we have to look at one of the most lethal decisions made on that entire site. where they decided to put the office trailers. So, for convenience during a maintenance project, management placed a bunch of temporary lightweight office trailers right next to the ISOM unit, and these trailers housed contractors, support staff, people who had no operational reason to be that close to danger. How close? Just 121 feet away from the blowdown stack. They were well inside the potential blast zone. When that vapor cloud ignited, those trailers were obliterated. And every single one of the 15 people who died that day was in or right around those trailers.
And this brings up a crucial question I want to ask all of you, especially anyone working out in the field. Have you ever been on a job site and seen temporary trailers or even just break areas placed way too close to a hazardous process? This practice, called facility siting, is a life or death decision. And here, convenience was tragically chosen over safety.
So now let's connect all the dots. The fatigue, the broken equipment, the trailers, these weren't isolated mistakes. They were all symptoms of a much, much deeper problem, a broken safety culture driven by relentless cost-cutting. And don't just take my word for it. Listen to this. Just 2 months before the explosion, an internal audit report landed on BP management's desk. It said, quote, "We have never seen a site where the notion I could die today was so real." It said the workers lived with an exceptional degree of fear. The warnings could not possibly have been more clear, and yet no meaningful action was taken. The root of the problem was this profound misunderstanding of risk. See, BP's leadership was focused on personal safety, things like slips, trips, and falls. They tracked their injury rate, it was getting better, and they actually thought the plant was safe. But they completely neglected process safety, the complex systems that are designed to prevent catastrophic explosions. They were measuring the wrong thing, and it created a fatal illusion of safety. This culture of risk was systemic. BP had ordered a 25% budget cut across the board, which starved maintenance and training. Previous incidents and near misses weren't investigated properly. And time again, production was rewarded over safety. This wasn't just a failure at Texas City. This was a pattern of behavior that would lead directly to the Deepwater Horizon disaster 5 years later. The ultimate lesson from Texas City is this: process safety management is not about checking boxes. It is not about filling out forms. It is a living system of safeguards. It is the only thing standing between a normal day at the plant and a multi-fatality disaster. If you want more real OSHA insights, breakdowns of industrial disasters, and life-saving safety education, make sure you subscribe to HSestudy.